Hi friends, welcome back to Poetry Perch. I'm Dean and Glenn here with
Ian Hyman.
Today we will be discussing Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is often considered one of America's greatest poets. She challenged the existing definitions of what poetry was at that time, and she experimented with expression along with changing how people viewed first-person poetry. Just truly, she did some great things for the medium. Her first volume of poetry was actually published 4 years after her death. Yes, nothing of hers was ever seen by the public eye until she was long gone, unfortunately. But over the next 2 years after that first edition was published, there were 11 more published.
Which is excellent.
Just people loved her stuff, couldn't get enough of it. And it slowly went from being, oh, just like a household thing, you know, wife doesn't have anything to do, she'll read some poetry, to everyone of all ages, of all walks of life reading her poetry. And if you've ever been interested in poetry, you've heard of Emily Dickinson.
You absolutely have, or you've at least heard of her work. But Emily Dickinson absolutely wasn't without her challenges. She had a very interesting life. She was a very reclusive individual, often wouldn't greet guests that entered her home. In the later years of her life, too, she would recluse within her bedroom. And even though that first edition of her poetry, that anthology, was published 4 years after her death, it was actually compromised a lot from her original vision. It wouldn't be until the 20th century that we started seeing uncensored, raw, uncut visions of Dickinson's original intentions. And I do find that a little bit sad. But today we are going to give you that uncut, original look at Emily Dickinson's life through the lens of her poetic work. So I've chosen a great poem to start us out here. I think it's pretty indicative of what Emily Dickinson wants to talk about here.
All right, let's hear it.
All right. I heard a fly buzz when I died. I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. The eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset, when the king be witnessed in the room. I willed my keepsake, signed away what portion of me be assignable, and then it was there, interposed a fly. With blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz between the light and me, and then the windows failed, and then I could not see to see.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't write it, but thank you.
Of course.
Here, we're going to start and lay the foundation of several of the themes that we're going to see in Dickinson's poetry. First of all, there's this moody, melancholy tone that stretches over all of her works. You're going to see things are going to get very somber. And I heard a fly buzz when I died. There's this overbearing, this overwhelming feeling of detachment.
Of course.
Of course, the real hook here is I heard a fly buzz when I died. Our speaker has passed on. Our speaker is a corpse. I mean, that's incredible.
I find that a lot of older works has that odd imagery of the dead speaking to us.
But for poetry, especially in the way that Emily Dickinson has imbued this with life, it really goes to show the strength of that classic trope, that device. And I feel like another thing that I should mention here, it might not have been evident in my reading, but there is a lot of simply strange and confounding punctuation in this. This is not a traditionally written poem. We're not looking at a sonnet. We're not looking at a limerick. This is all free verse, all original. And then the windows failed, and then I could not see to see. That's actually a very abrupt ending.
Oh, yeah.
We have 4 quadrants here. And
I wasn't quite sure you were done with the poem when you were. Like, it was just ended, much like the person in the poem.
And that's definitely what Dickinson's trying to get across here. That's our message here. And another thing I want to unpack here is some of the symbolism, some of the old imagery. I willed my keepsake, signed away what portion of me be, you know, a will, a testament, the passing on of belongings, assignable, and then it was there interposed a fly. We see here there's this barrier between life and death. That's where the speaker is residing. That's how they're that's how they're talking to us. That's how they're narrating this. But there's a fly there. That's their barrier. That is their demon. And I say demon because the very next line is, with blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz. And historically, blue is meant to be a color representative of malice, of the devil, of it's a terrible omen of death and demonic despair, of curses.
It's unfortunate the color you're wearing then, jeez.
Oh. You have a good point there, don't you?
Yeah, well,
But that's definitely what we want to draw from this. It's this beautifully written, somber masterpiece, and we're going to see that just throughout a lot of the works we're going to talk about here today.
Of course.
So I'm going to pass the baton on to you, Dina.
Okay.
I want to see what you have to say here.
Well, I have something that is a bit more lighthearted today. This is called "The Mushroom is the Elf of Plants." Ooh. The mushroom is the elf of plants. At evening, it is not. At morning, in a truffled hut, it stop upon a spot, as if it tarried away, and yet its whole career is shorter than a snake's delay, and fleeter than a tear. 'Tis vegetation jugular, the germ of alibi, doth like a bubble and a die, and like a bubble I feel as if the grass were pleased to have it intermit. The suspicion of Psychon, of summer circumspite, had nature any supple face, or could she one condemn? Had nature's apposite, that mushroom, it is him.
Dina, that is a trip. That is wild.
Thank you.
Oh, the main thing that sticks out to me just from hearing that is the strong word choice, the way that just flows together.
Oh, yeah.
That all those syllables, the rhythm to it, it's so refined.
Most
so,
definitely.
Yeah.
Something that I thought of when reading this is a lot of times mushrooms are associated with fairy circles. Yes. You see a ring of mushrooms in the woods, don't go in it, don't go near it, just turn around, go back the way you came. And elves be a type of fae.
That's right.
In older literature, they are a type of fae. And so that association immediately came to mind, at least for me.
That's definitely what I was thinking of too. I know that I was hooked just by your title.
Oh, yeah.
It brings up this wonderful image of luminous mushrooms, this twisting and almost personified forest. And I was also interested by that last line. Could you repeat that, please?
That mushroom, it is him.
That mushroom, it is him. And I need to wonder, what do you draw from that?
The mushroom's just a little guy, in the woods.
I mean, I just find it absolutely beautiful. The character that Dickinson can bring to these to these very contemporary objects, especially in the time that this was written, the 19th century, and
it also in a way reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. Just the personification of a plant really is nice.
I agree, and I'm just absolutely in awe of that entire sequence there.
Me too. All right. Well, I believe we have a poem ready by one of our friends, so let's cut to her.
Wonderful.
All overgrown by cunning moss. All overgrown by cunning moss, all interspersed with weed. The little cage of Courier Bell in quiet Hawthorne Lane. This bird observing others, then frost came too sharp became. Retired to other latitudes, quietly did the same. But differed in returning since Yorkshire hills are green. Yet not in all the nests I meet can nightingale be seen.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay.
That was wonderful.
That was beautiful. So, as she stated in the beginning, that was all overgrown by cunning moss. And it just provides a lot of different perspectives on a lot of different creatures.
It does.
In just the forest. She tends to go there quite often to see what's out in that forest, in that great beyond.
You know, that's taking me back to the reclusive lifestyle that we were describing for Emily Dickinson. We see there's this connection that she seems to draw with the natural world, and I find that to just be awe-inspiring. And I know I'm going to be saying that a lot because this is...
Well, like we said at the beginning, you know, she truly is one of America's greatest poets. And unfortunately, it did take her too long to be recognized the way she should have.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, her work is just beautiful, always.
Absolutely.
All right. I believe it's time for a commercial break. We'll see you back here at Poetry Perch.
That's right. All right. So.
Welcome back to Poetry Perch. Apologies. All right, what do you have for us now, Ian?
Well, I have yet another wonderful and moody poem for us, and it's going to be along the same lines of "I heard a fly buzz when I died," because similarly, it has to do with the theme of death. In fact, it was not death, for I stood up, and I hope you don't mind if I just dive right in there.
Of course, go for it.
It was not death, for I stood up, and all the dead lied down. It was not night, for all the bells put out their tongues for noon. It was not frost, for on my flesh I felt sirocco's crawl, nor fire, for just my marble feet could keep a chancel cool. And yet it tasted, like them all, the figures I have seen, set orderly for burial, reminded me of mine. And if my life were shaved and fit into a frame, and could not breathe without a key, and 'twas like midnight, oh, some when everything that ticked had stopped, and space stares all around, or grisly frost first autumn morns repeal the beating ground, but most like chaos, stopless, cool, without a chance or spar, or even a report of land to justify despair.
That was very, very, very... You always read things so well, you know?
Though this is a very... this poem lends itself to being read well, Dina, because it is an absolute wild ride. It is so strong. There's this ever increasingly dire tone, and that last line, in stark contrast to the abruptness of "I heard a fly buzz," it's stringent. It is crushing to justify despair. So I feel like we really need to break this one down here.
Okay, break it down for us then.
All right, so it was not death, for I stood up. It was not frost, for on my flesh. Over and over again, we're seeing these contrasts made. We're not seeing comparisons. We're not seeing, death. It's terrible. It's grisly. It's frosty. No, we're seeing it's not frosty. It's not death. But it's not necessarily a denial. It's more saying it's worse than this. We're going beyond this. We're going beyond death. We're going beyond frost. And the only comparison we're going to see here, it's chaos, stopless, and despair. And obviously there's a lot that we can draw from this. We can add a lot of our personal our personal vindictions and feelings to this, but really, it's so deeply rooted with this ever-present despair, this crushing and deafening and defeating sense of regret, of just this anxiety constantly around you. It's indescribable.
Of course.
And of course, it's very long, but at least compared to what else we've read today.
Right.
But I feel like it has one of the most succinct themes here. It's describing a state of being that is absolutely and entirely defined by misery. And of course, that's a bit of a downer.
Right.
As is to be expected of a poem about
Right.
nigh death, about misery. But I still think it's beautiful.
It definitely is. It's incredible how Dickinson can take these sad things that just hurt to talk about sometimes and turn them into something just beautiful.
Right.
And even though it hurts, you can still sit down. You can still say, "Yeah, I relate to that.
Like
yeah.
Right.
Like I can see myself in that."
Like it's morbid, but there's a morbid beauty in it.
Right.
It comes together, and it creates something that is simultaneously repulsive and revolting to you personally, but you can't help but be drawn to it. And there's also some great imagery here I want to describe.
Okay.
We're looking at the figures I have seen set orderly for burial reminded me of mine. The speakers comparing themselves to a corpse. And if my life were shaven and fit into a frame, their life is flashing by. I mean, it's almost like this is death. It's almost like this is a near-death experience. And I don't know, if this is the type of great lyricism that we can get from being isolated for the entirety of your life.
It's unfortunate that's how we get to something so beautiful, but that is unfortunately the way it goes sometimes.
It is. But I think that we can all learn from that. We can all learn from Dickinson that beautiful art, absolutely mesmerizing and life-changing art, art that defines a medium, can come from the darkest, most personal, most desperate places.
It's unbelievable that she just wasn't picked up at any point. Like, it took years and years until she was huge. You can't discuss poetry in any classroom without bringing Emily Dickinson up at least once. You might not read her stuff, but she's brought up, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely. She's in the pantheon of Wordsworth and of Lord Bryant. Like, she's absolutely standing on her own, one of the greatest poets of all time.
Oh, most definitely.
And I think I'd like to see another example of that, Dina, and
all right.
hopefully something that can kind of lighten the mood after.
Well, I'm actually going to send it to our friend Miranda. She read another Emily Dickinson poem for us. So,
Besides the autumn poets sing, a few prosiac days, a little this side of the snow, and that side of the haze, a few incisive mornings, a few ascentic eves, gone Mr. Brighton's golden rod and Mr. Thompson's sheaves. Still is the bustle in the brook, sealed are the spicy valves, mesmeric fingers softly touch the eyes of many elves. Perhaps a squirrel may remain my sentiments to share. Grant, O Lord, a sunny mind, thy windy will to bear.
that was beautiful, Miranda. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just love the fall imagery that she sometimes brings.
Right.
It's so nice and it can be refreshing.
Definitely.
Fall is definitely one of my favorite seasons.
It's so very colorful, and it's just the perfect weather.
Right. Mm-hmm. And where we happen to live, it can be unpredictable.
Certainly.
Fall, you either have rain or you have snow, or you have those crunchy leaves that everyone loves. Right. But whatever we do get, it's fall.
It's fall, and it's wonderful.
And I feel like that can be said just about anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's fall.
I feel like too often we're looking at the at the pragmatic elements of weather. We're looking at the climate of where we live. We're saying this is terrible.
Right.
I can't function. The roads are icy. I'm having to do all this yard work. But I feel like we might be too into the mindset of this modern world. We need to sit back and appreciate the natural world. We need to appreciate the changing seasons.
It's truly something that it's gorgeous, and it's just not discussed as much as it probably should be. But Dickinson here just describes it in such beauty that it's, I mean, that's really all there is to it. It's just beautiful.
Beautiful.
All right, well, we have another commercial break coming up. We'll catch you here in a bit.
Just in a bit.
And I can't change, even if I try, even if I wanted to. My love, my love, my love, she keeps me warm. 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 She keeps me warm.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Love is kind. Love is patient.
What to expect when you're expecting
Like here.
a teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
Ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Poetry Perch. So, our next poem will be read by me. It is called Color, Cascade, and Denomination.
Nice.
Color, Cascade, Denomination. These are time's affairs. Death's diviner classifying does not know they are, as in sleep, all hue forgotten. Tenants put behind, death's large democratic fingers rub away the brand. As Curasian he is careless, if he puts away the chrysalis of blonde or umber, equal butterfly, they emerge from his obscuring what death knows so well, our minor institutions deem unplausible.
That was once again just a beautiful
Yes.
show. Again, we're looking at these themes of death here, but unlike I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Die, and especially like It Was Not Death For I Stood Up, there's this almost positive relationship
Yeah,
with death.
yeah.
You described a chrysalis, and my first thought is metamorphosis, transformation,
Yeah.
a positive growth and change, and I appreciate...
It seems, sorry.
Oh, no.
It seems less like an ending and more of a new beginning. When one door shuts, another opens kind of situation, using death to personify that rather than, normal God, the universe. Just that there's just a weight to it, you know?
is.
Just using death as a character is a heavy thing to do.
And that's why we see death being used as a character all the time.
Yeah,
in all
yeah.
sorts of media and myth and folklore. And I feel like that also speaks to another great aspect of death, that it's, not of death, but of, it's universal.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you talk about personifying, or rather using an analogy of transformation through a deity or through a philosophy, but those aren't universal.
No, they aren't.
There's not everyone is going to experience that same rigid pathway, that same transformative, ethical compass. But but everyone will experience death.
Yes.
And that sounds terrible. That sounds morbid, but once we look at it like the great unifier, when we take this perspective that it's what brings the human race all together, I think that we can see some beauty in that. It's the veil being taken off, being ripped away, and showing we're all mortal, we're all alike, and we can all revel in that experience together. We can all take in the same chrysalis and undergo the same transformation.
Yes. All right, so I hear you have one more poem for us today.
One more poem, and this one is kind of, I think, going to be a great way to cap off everything else we've talked about today. It's The Poet Lights But Lamps.
All right, let's hear it.
The poet light but lamps themselves go out, the wicks they stimulate if vital light. In hair as do the suns, each age a lens, disseminating their circumference.
So you said to me earlier that that poem was a little, what's the word you used?
I say it was a little meta. A little
meta, yes. So why don't we go into why it is?
Well, of course here, we're talking about a poet talking about poets. The poets light but lamps themselves go out, the wicks they stimulate at vital light. And we're seeing a very clear metaphor here that's extended throughout the poem, though it is a very short poem. It's comparing the poet to a wick, to a candle. They light the candle, they light the lamp, and I think we're seeing a theme here very similar to the Shakespearean sonnets. I'm not sure if you've looked into them.
Just a few, not deeply.
But both of them are dealing with the fact that while the poet, while the author of these works, of any media, eventually will pass on, eventually they will die, and oftentimes that goes into the work itself because they're putting so much of themselves into it. It lives on.
I think it's a little ironic that so many of her poems deal with passing and the artist, and she wasn't recognized as an artist. And I know I keep bringing that up, but I feel like it's just such a shame. It took too long. We've read some amazing poems today that are just beautiful, that didn't see the light of day for years, and then even when they originally did see the light of day, they were edited. The message was changed. Things were censored. But art shouldn't be censored in that way.
No. Art is much like death. It's universal. They go hand in hand. Art is all around us. It's everywhere you look, and anyone is capable of making it. And that's why I feel that The Poet Lights But Lamps, it really encapsulates what we've been talking about today. We see someone, Emily Dickinson, put all of her heart and soul into her work. All of her heart and soul goes into this.
Oh, yeah.
This was the focus of her life, and it burns her away. It melts her away. She's absolutely in despair and distress, but she is passionate.
Oh, yeah.
And even when she's burnt herself away, we still see that light. And I'm happy to see, and I'm happy to say, we've captured that today.
Oh, yeah.
I hope that we've lit that fire for a lot of people today.
I feel like that's a great way to cap it off.
Thank you.
You know, Emily Dickinson really brought a lot of great things to this world, and I'm glad that we could convey those things even farther out into the world.
Absolutely.
So we will see you next time here on Poetry Perch. Remember, friends, snaps, not claps.